This is a Flying Cow production.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the Great Film Challenge. I am your host, Clay Johnson, the Flying Cow himself, and here with me again is my nephew, Aaron. Aaron, how we doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So it's been a little bit since we recorded, and before we get into the movie that we're talking about today, I did want to mention the fact that I think the last one we recorded was Gladiator.
Yes.
And we've actually seen Gladiator 2 since then. Did you want to mention anything about that film? What did you think about that?
It was a good movie.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't say a good, sequel, though.
No?
Not really to me. It didn't... There are a lot of things, because you were also saying that I kind of picked up on. I think I kind of agreed. A lot of things didn't really make much sense.
Yeah, I think that it was silly that they had to make Lucius Maximus's son.
Yeah.
And because also Lucius was the character in Gladiator 2 that I was the least interested in out of all. There was a lot going on in that movie, and Lucius's storyline was the one I was the least interested in.
Which one was more interesting?
I mean, Denzel's character was definitely much more interesting.
Macrinus was really cool.
Yeah. I found him much more compelling to watch. I mean, not just because it was Denzel Washington, but they gave him much more to play.
They did.
And I don't know, I just felt like the Lucius character was just kind of there. Yeah, it was a little too much. I mean, I didn't dislike it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, didn't really live up to the original for me. All right, well, we're not here to talk about Gladiator 2. We are here, so we actually devised a system for deciding what movies we are going to watch. And so we used that system and decided which movie we were going to watch. But then Aaron forgot what movies were on the list.
I forgot one movie.
And so he went and watched one of them. So then we had to watch it again so that we could... I had to watch it, and then he just watched it again with me.
I was half watching it.
Yeah, that's okay. First, we are going to review that film, and then we're going to tell you what film we're going to be watching next, because that's what we thought we were going to be talking about now, but that's okay. So right now we are actually going to be talking about The Truman Show.
Yes.
Which is a film from 1998. And this was kind of, Jim Carrey kind of, I mean, obviously he didn't come out of nowhere. He had been working for a long time. I think he'd been acting for, 10, 15 years before he kind of exploded onto the scene in 94. But all of a sudden in 94, he had 3 big hits.
Yes.
Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber, all in the same year.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever seen any of those movies?
I've seen Dumb and Dumber.
Okay.
I never finished Ace Ventura.
Uh-huh.
And I know a bunch about The Mask, but I've never fully watched it.
I will say, out of those, the one I know probably the least is The Mask. I saw Dumb and Dumber is the one that got the most play around me.
Yeah.
Whether or not I've ever actually watched it from start to finish, I'm not 100%, but I've seen enough of it to know that, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not really my type of humor. In fact, none of those were films that really grabbed me. I finally watched Ace Ventura a few years ago, and I see why guys my age and a little older and a little younger really went crazy for that type of thing. It wasn't my humor. In fact, it's got some humor in it now that has not aged well at all. But it just like that. Those kind of movies, I never really was interested in. It wasn't until Jim Carrey started doing things like the Truman Show that I took really any interest in him at all. But yeah, so the Truman Show was released in '98, directed by Peter Weir, and also starred as well as Jim Carrey, Laura Linney, Noah Emmerich, Holland Taylor, Ed Harris, and many more. So the film is basically about a guy named Truman Burbank who basically his entire life, unbeknownst to him, is a television show.
Yes.
And basically the entire world watches and is fully compelled by this show and this person. And he doesn't know that he's on television at all.
Yeah.
So before you just decided to randomly watch this movie, Aaron, what did you know about this? And what were kind of your expectations before watching it?
I knew the setup.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the main part that interested me.
Yeah.
I was curious to see Jim Carrey in a more of a serious role.
Sure.
I mean, there were still jokes, but it was just different.
Have you seen many other Jim Carrey movies? I mean, you said you've seen a little bit of his earlier stuff, but like, have you ever seen like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or any Man on the Moon, any of that kind of stuff?
No, I've not.
Okay, I will say now he does more. Well, honestly, now the most of the stuff that he does is like Sonic and stuff like that. But he went through a period where all he did was either serious or just out there type of things, not like in a comedic out there, just kind of odd type of stuff. So, but yeah, this is definitely what kind of started him down a more serious avenue.
I liked it. Outside, that wasn't really too much outside of that
you knew or were expecting. Yeah. So, how did you feel about the film?
I thought it was amazing. I actually really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I think because a bit ago there was a bunch of just rant because people are weird, and they bring up like random bits and scenes and clips and put them on shorts and whatever, and it gets used over and over again, so it gets really bland and boring. I hate it. Because they don't actually like look into the full of the movie, and they did that with the Truman Show a bit ago.
Okay.
And it was the same ending scene every time, and I was like,
so people were using the movie to create their own shorts, or
they were basically
were they taking clips from the film?
They'll take clips from anything, edit it, put music over it, whatever, and then they get a bunch of views or whatever they need off of it.
Oh, okay.
It's just dumb. Instead of actually like advertising the full movie, or instead the better option, just here's a video about this movie that's really awesome and why.
Okay. All right. So yeah, obviously you were exposed to it through things like that. Let's see. What did you think about like this kind of reveal of the fact that he is on a television show?
I feel like it would have been a lot more mind-blowing if I didn't completely know it.
Sure.
'Cause as it goes through, even in the earlier parts of the movie, you kind of tell that there's something weird,
Right.
like more so than normal. But with the little precursor known that he was in a show,
I
it
will
wasn't
say,
as big.
even when it first came out, I don't think the fact that he was on a television show was a secret to anybody.
Yeah.
They don't really kind of break the fourth wall in it until about, I don't know, probably a little bit more than halfway through the film, or a little less than halfway through. But it takes a while. But even outside of that, there is kind of an artificiality
Yes.
to it, and there's also just kind of the strange camera angles. And you can tell that they are getting shots just kind of from nearby things.
Yes.
Stuff like that, which honestly is just kind of fun filmmaking, as just kind of an exercise. But also, when you think about the fact that they've got to put all these cameras in places that he's not supposed to know cameras are, it makes it that much more interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what did you think about the character of Kristoff, played by Ed Harris,
Oh.
the guy that created the show, for lack of a better word?
I think you said Chris Harris? Ed Harris?
Ed Harris is the actor. The
Kristoff.
character was Kristoff. Yeah.
I think I've never seen Ed Harris in anything else, I don't think.
No.
But I think he did a really good job
Yeah.
of kind of like subconsciously displaying what he was thinking
Mm-hmm.
and just the state of mind
Mm-hmm.
through every time we saw him. Especially towards the ending parts of the movie when he gets more stressed and all that, and
Right.
he's like worried. You can tell exactly how it is, along
Right.
with the atmosphere, and I really like that.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask you kind of a deep question.
Okay.
Okay. And if you're just not sure, that is fine. What do you think about the morality of somebody like Kristoff doing what he did to Truman? Do you think that it is in any way ethical? Do you think that that is something that somebody could or should be able to get away with, or was that kind of messed up?
I think it was really messed up. I don't think that was ethical and honestly anyway.
Yeah.
I can't think of any possible reason to justify that only something completely insane and crazy.
Yeah, I don't think
justified in the slightest.
in the way that our laws currently are, I mean, who knows in a few years, but I don't think that this could ever happen. I mean,
Probably
he
not.
said that Truman is technically was adopted by a corporation, which I don't think they could ever do. But even beyond that, the privacy laws that they'd have to be violating
Yeah.
just to do what they did, and they'd have to have some sort of contract in place, but it would have to be without his knowledge if they were going to do it this way. So yeah, there's no way that this could be in any way ethical. I will say, at the same time, I believe it was the same year that this film came out, there was another film which I've never seen, but it starred Matthew McConaughey, and it was called Ed TV,
Yeah.
which was a similar premise, but basically he chose to put his life on television. And honestly, this was kind of a thing that was starting because this was 98. And so I don't know if it was really big yet, but very soon there were going to be a lot of this was kind of the start of, before YouTube or anything like that, people just filming themselves and putting themselves on the internet.
Yeah.
You know? And so the EdTV thing was more, I mean, it was, like I said, the guy was fully aware, but it was a similar idea that basically his life was on display for everyone to see. But I think that this one delves a little deeper in that it kind of, it wrestles with a lot of, you know, philosophical questions about, you know, what freedom is, what, you know, all of this kind of stuff. You know, what does happiness derive from? Because you could argue that kind of the thing that set him on this path to wanting to break free was the fact that they insisted on him ending up with Meryl and not this other woman. And I would imagine that part of that was, I mean, it doesn't seem like they even gave Sylvia a chance. She was just always supposed to be in the background, which meant that they were going to try to control what he was attracted to, which is never going to work. But even if they had somehow gotten Sylvia on board, it then like we said, they're still messed up in the fact that they are controlling and manipulating his life.
Yes.
And yeah, so they messed up by trying to control it too much.
Yep.
But ultimately, it was kind of for the best because he shouldn't have ever been there in the first place. I will say I would have been interested in just maybe like a short to kind of see like how he reacts outside, because, you know, if he's kind of losing his mind, you know, realizing that nothing is real, everything is done for him. Imagine the culture shock of going out into the world and realizing that everybody he meets has seen his entire life play out.
Yep.
I don't know that this poor man is ever going to find any sort of normalcy in his life.
Probably not.
No.
I think it is honestly just insane with how many people they had outside of him on the show and the total cast.
Mm-hmm.
And that they all were perfectly fine with it to the point that they were so in character. He couldn't tell until, like, how old was he?
Oh, I mean, I would imagine he was, well, let's see, how old would Jim Carrey have been at the time? Because I would imagine that it was about the same. See, Carrey was born in 62, so 98, he would have been about 36? 35, 36.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a long time.
That's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about before we kind of wrap things up?
I did like the ending.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly before he actually like walked out.
Yeah.
Whenever he was on the boat and actually getting to the edge.
Right.
It was a really long scene. Felt longer than it actually was. But I liked the atmosphere and how you could see all the struggle and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what else to say about that.
No, that's fine, buddy.
I really liked that part towards the end on the boat.
Yeah, I mean, even that bit where he hits the wall and he's just kind of beating himself against the wall. That's a really great acting moment.
I thought he was trying to break it.
I mean, I think he was. It was just kind of showing the frustration of, because before he saw that there was kind of a wall that he could step on, it felt like, you know, his because, he'd been through so much just to get to where he was, as you mentioned, just the struggle to get there, because basically everyone around him was lying to him.
Yeah.
Everyone around him was gaslighting him, they keep telling him that the world is real, even though it's not, for the sake of the show. And so he has basically, been doing everything that he can to kind of break out of this fantasy. And then he thinks he's sailing away, and he runs into a wall.
Yes.
It's a metaphorical wall as much as it is an actual physical wall, because it's an obstacle keeping him from, exploring his life, finding the freedom that he wants to find. And so, when he is literally trying to break down the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Then he looks down and just sees that he can walk along the wall and finds the door.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a great moment. All right. Is there anything else, or are we done discussing this one?
No, I think that's it.
I think that's it. All right. So, like I said at the top, we had actually come up with a way to decide what our next movies would be. Aaron's decided that he wants to kind of go back and forth, because there are some on this list that he has seen and some that he hasn't. The ones he hasn't seen actually far outnumber the ones that he has, but we're going to go back and forth between ones that he has seen and ones that he hasn't. And we have created wheels for each one. So basically at the end of each episode, he is going to spin one of these wheels to decide which episode or which movie we're going to watch next.
Mm-hmm.
So we spun the wheel before he watched Truman Show. And the film that we are going to be discussing next time is Lagan, an Indian film from I think it's 2001.
Yeah. It's 2001.
2001. If you have not seen the film, I certainly encourage you to do so. I will say it is very long, and honestly, the longer version that you can find, the better.
Yes.
Because the film itself it's close to 4 hours.
Yeah.
Like, it's like 3 hours and like 40-something minutes.
That was the one we had.
Yeah. The first version, though, that we found on YouTube was only 3 hours. I didn't realize that there were longer versions. We started watching it, and then we realized that a lot had been cut out. So if you do get the opportunity to watch it, try to find the longer cuts. Even if it's missing like 10 to 15 minutes, that's fine. It's much better than the 3 hour version, because the 3 hour version, it cuts out the songs and dances. And what's an Indian film without the songs and dances?
Yes.
So, check back with us then for that. But until next time, moo.